If you're wondering what your favorite tech stocks are going to do likely tomorrow with all of this data that is coming out that is super important, then this is the video for you. Don't skip any part of this video because I'm going to go over technical analysis. We're going to look at the VIX, the DXY. I'm going to show you how to gauge the American dollar and the economy against foreign currencies to see the strength. I'm also going to be showing you guys exactly what I use in the overnight hours tonight in order to gauge. It's one of my very special strategies to gauge what's going to happen or likely to happen in the overnight to early morning hours with data coming out tomorrow. It's a strategy I use to gauge what might happen tomorrow, even in the late evening and overnight hours into the morning hours. So you don't want to miss any of that. I'm also going to be showing you guys the order books and some other strategies I look at to see the volume footprint within the candlesticks. There is data inside of candlesticks. It's not just candlestick patterns, but data inside. I'm going to be showing you all of that. So stick around. If you guys enjoy the strategies in this video and you want to learn more, and maybe you don't know where to begin in the market and you're trying to retire, I would love to help you guys. You could sign up for my Discord, which is going to have coaching calls every week, 2 of them recorded, 6 hours of on-demand module training, as well as a 24-hour access to me in the Ask Corey section. You get to copy my trades during the live coaching calls. I have a trade section, a trade alert section as well, and general chats for you guys to chat with all the other members. If you're interested and you want to learn even further while you're watching this video, the link is in the information box below. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the VIX. We're going to look at Tesla. We're going to look at Palantir, SoFi. We're also going to look at Nvidia, and we're going to quickly and briefly look at Meta and Google to understand what is going on in the market and what is likely to happen and how the market's going to be affected with all of this data that is pretty much weighing in tomorrow morning. First and foremost, we can see that the VIX has settled down pretty much just like I said it would. It's worked its way down into the 1676 range, which is very good and stable and fairly low volatility. In fact, it's very, very low compared to the last 6 months. In fact, it hasn't been this low since the 26th of March, briefly, very, very briefly. And the last time we were in this range consistently was the beginning of January and when the election took place going back into December of 2024. And it was even lower than that at the beginning of December last year. But $16 price range is pretty decent for the VIX. For the lower, the safer, obviously. And we can see that there is a lot of consolidation going on right now because we're waiting on data. There's a lot of data coming out tomorrow. And I want to explain to you guys how important tomorrow's data is because the Feds are not going to cut rates. Jerome Powell speaks next week. They're not going to cut rates unless they get inflation numbers where they want them. Jerome Powell says he wants 2%. And I believe that they will almost for sure cut rates if inflation is at 2.1 or 2.2. Maybe even 2.3, but I doubt it. I think really honestly, they're looking for at least 2.2 to have some reason to do a light cut, maybe 25 basis points, maybe 50. It's hard to say at this point, but they said we'd for sure get one, almost for sure get one in July, which is what we're talking about next week, which is what Jerome Powell is talking about next week when he speaks. But if inflation goes above 2.3%, let's say to 2.5 or 2.7, they still could cut rates. I just think it's a little bit more on the unlikely side. And this is pretty much verbatim, or for the most part verbatim, what Jerome Powell and the Feds have said is that they're looking for 2%. So data is coming out tomorrow morning and inflation previously was 2.3% and they're expecting 2.5%. So when we look at this data right here, the actual forecast is 2.5 and we previously had 2.3. If we get 2.4, 2.5, the market will be okay. We might get rate cuts. It's hard to say if we will or not. I don't think we will, but we could. But if we get 2.3% again, this shows stability in inflation, that it stayed the same and it stayed fairly low, which is pretty low compared to the past 5 years. In fact, this is 2020 and 2019 and 2018 numbers, pretty close. So it's very low. And just think like this time last year, we were over 3. We were over 3 up until like November, October of 2024. These are good numbers. They're fairly good numbers. So if we're at 2.3%, again, it shows stability and the Feds could cut rates and are more likely to cut rates if we're at least at 2.3%. If we get 2.2 or 2.1, I would say it's very, very probable they cut rates. And at 2%, they're pretty much going to anyway, because that's their target. It's hard to say where this data is going to fall. Nobody knows where this data data is going to go. But what I will tell you is that this data tomorrow is directly correlated to next week's interest rate cuts. And the market is very bullish right now, so you must be safe. The market is bullish right now. We've broken out of all the downtrends. So you have to understand that this data tomorrow is critical. You're looking at the data right now on the screen. This is critical. This data will be a fairly big catalyst into what Jerome Powell says next week. If we don't get rate cuts again, we've somewhat already priced that in because he has a lot of word salad. A lot of nothing's been happening. But it's because inflation data was good last month at 2.3%. If inflation data gets worse and goes to 2.4, 2.5, or even higher than that, then we're pretty much not getting rate cuts and the market will slip. All of the data that we're waiting on, interest rate cuts, inflation, all that's tomorrow. Sure, we're not going to find out about rate cuts tomorrow, but it's less likely we get cuts if inflation goes up. So tomorrow is indicative of what's likely to come. Not for sure, but what's likely to come next week. And it's very important to understand what's happening tomorrow. If this data is good, the market's going to fly and it's going to price in rate cuts next week, even more so than it already has. If this data is rough or not good, the market's going to slip. So you have to be very safe. And this data is important. And I'm going to show you how to gauge the market in this video. We're going to look at the VIX a little bit. We're going to talk about some other stocks, but I'm going to show you, so don't skip any part of this video. I'm going to show you how we gauge the overnight hours. So this way at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll have an idea of what's likely to come in the morning. You'll see what direction the market's going. I personally don't anticipate a large sell-off today. As much as I thought there would be some selling, it looks like there's a lot of confidence in the market. Data is likely to at least meet expectations at 2.5 or better. And there's a really strong possibility it could match 2.3 or better. But there's always that possibility it couldn't, so we have to be safe. So I'm going to show you the VIX right here is going down, and that's a good thing. The more this goes down, the better it is for the stock market. We're going to look at Tesla. Tesla has made a nice run up, but you also have to understand it has to break the structure at 323, which it's doing, and it has to close and move above that and show stability. It has another structure to break at 335 and another structure to break at 345 and 340, and then another one at 350. So one step at a time for Tesla. There is a lot of bullish momentum in Tesla right now temporarily. There's been a lot of buying. It is oversold, and you can see it's at 81 on the RSI, which is overbought. Overall, if Tesla can hold that level, we'll be good, but I do anticipate maybe a little bit of a pullback today into tomorrow, depending how data is, and it could move up with data. Or if data is not good, it'll end up doing this number. But it's also indicative of Robotaxi. Robotaxi, is a phenomenal event, then I think that also makes up for it partially. Looking at Meta briefly, we can see that this stock has ran completely back to where it was. It's very stable up here in the 700 range. It's holding it. It's not volatile and flying up and down. It's actually very stable. And I think that Meta is less affected by tariffs and interest rate cuts than some of the other stocks that we've mentioned and talked about. So this stock will come down if tariffs is really getting negative or becomes negative. And if we don't get interest rate cuts, it will obviously come down. If inflation data is bad tomorrow, it will come down. But I think it's less volatile than Tesla. In fact, it is less volatile than Tesla. And it's less volatile, in my opinion, than a lot of the other stocks we talk about, including NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA is a little bit more volatile most times, but it's kind of really dependent on the news and how specific it is. Looking at SPY is very strong. In fact, SPY is a lot stronger than I thought it would be going into tonight. I knew it was going to be $600 range all week, but it's really pushing. But this is actually very indicative of the belief that we have, the faith that we have. And I really don't like crossing over into using the word faith in the stock market, because this is more of a tactical, fundamental, analytical, and factual type of events that takes place. This is not about faith. It's about facts. You can have faith in a company, but if they're financially losing money, they're not profitable. So I don't really, it's a kind of a gray area. I really don't like using the word faith when I'm trading or investing. This is not a religion. These are facts. And so when you look at SPY, it seems like people have a lot of faith and a lot of trust in the market right now, which is good. But if data comes out rough tomorrow morning, then SPY is going to end up going back to like 580 or 590 or maybe even lower. But it's hard to say for sure. But it's definitely pricing in good data tomorrow. tomorrow. Like, there's a lot of bullish momentum and belief. And me personally, I think the data coming out tomorrow will be good. But you have to look at the SPY reaching all-time peaks. Okay, we are only about $10, not $8. $8 away from the peak just about. And if data misses tomorrow, you could be bag holding. So you have to be very careful. I think, like I said, data is going to be very good tomorrow. I do. But there's a chance, there always is that chance, it might not be. So you have to understand that. And the SPY is right now going up. And to go up at the end of the day like it is right now, going into the data that we have tomorrow, shows that people have no fear, or at least lower amount of fear and a lot of greed, and they believe that everything is going to be okay tomorrow. Looking at NVIDIA, it's pretty much the exact same thing. NVIDIA is at all-time highs. They are NVIDIA is just about $8, $9 away from all-time peaks. Dividends are actually here for NVIDIA tomorrow, which also is part of the cumulative buying that's happening on NVIDIA right now. It's not overbought though, so this is pretty stable, good green volume. It's not overbought yet. It's approaching overbought, holding a steady price. So NVIDIA is looking pretty strong. Again, same as the market, but I would not want to be buying NVIDIA at 144. It's at the top. It could go higher, it could go lower, but just off of safe practice and experience, you don't buy stocks when they're up here. Look at this range. You want to be buying in here. So between 100 and 120. The 110, 120 range is where you really want to be acquiring NVIDIA, which means selling puts a month out in the 120 range is much better than buying right now. And taking a look at SoFi, again, it's pretty much the same thing. There's a lot of strong sentiment in the market. SoFi is holding the 1 hour candle very strong right now. It's very strong. And the price has not really gone down. Say it's gone up completely. There's a lot of belief in this tomorrow. But for SoFi, unlike the other stocks we've talked about, this stock is directly affected more because interest rate cuts are beneficial to SoFi. So if we don't get rate cuts, then SoFi could struggle a little bit and it will bring the stock down. And we're unlikely to get rate cuts if inflation data is bad. And inflation data is tomorrow morning. So you have to think about that. You have to think about inflation data. SoFi has strong sentiment right now, but it has a double top peak, or pretty close to a double top peak right here, which is right at the 1450 range. So we have to be very careful with tomorrow's data and SoFi, because if the data is not good, then the market's going to price in unlikely rate cut, which will bring SoFi down and could potentially bring it back down to 13 or 1350, maybe even lower. Unlikely it would go lower in my opinion, but it could. But it will almost surely at some point come down in the 13 range if data is really bad tomorrow or it misses. So there's that to think about on SoFi. You have to be very careful. Again, this is another stock that's at the top. You look at the range, you'd want to be buying SoFi in the $11 and $12 range. So again, you'd be selling $12 puts a month out because that's where you'd want to get into the stock. It's just one example of a trade, but you never want to buy at the top unless you're dollar cost averaging and you already own shares. Again, remember, dollar cost averaging is not dollar cost lowering. It is an average up or down. So you can add some at the top and then you just double down when the stock goes down. My 33-10 rule, which is another rule I teach in Discord to my elite students, to my boot camps, masterclasses. This is a part of my 33-10 rule, which I teach my masterclass students and into the Discord how to use, and it gauges the ability to balance shares top and bottom while maintaining 10%. And you buy 2 in the bottom, 1 on the up. This way you're always averaging your share cost. Now, I promised you guys I would show you how I gauge the market going into the overnight hours and how you guys can do this in the overnight tonight. And what I would recommend is you go look at the S&P 500 futures, the minis and the micro minis, and watch what happens at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific, when the futures reopens tonight. And you watch it in the overnight hours as the stock market in Japan and China and then eventually Europe opens up in the overnight hours. You will see what the futures are doing for the SPY. And if we see a gap down on the futures where it kind of gaps down and we have a red candle down here, that means that the market's going to drop in the pre-market, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern time, right before the bell. If it gaps up, well, then it's pretty much the same thing, but the exact opposite. But if it consolidates kind of anywhere in this range, then that means it's uncertainty, but stability. And that's pretty much what we're looking for. And when you look at the micro mini S&P 500 between 6 p.m. Eastern and 4 a.m. Eastern, before the early pre-market hours open up on some brokerages like Robinhood and Webull, then you can gauge what is happening in the world and how they feel about the stock market, because when it opens, that's indicative of what's going to happen between 7 a.m. Eastern and 9:30 a.m. Eastern. The data is coming out tomorrow morning, and it's coming out at 8:30 in the morning Eastern time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 1 hour before opening bell. This is very important to understand. So let's go ahead and look at Palantir, and we'll gauge what is likely to happen here. Again, the same thing on Palantir as the other stocks that we have looked at. We got some peaks up here. We're at an all-time high. Everything is priced in for good data. If good data happens tomorrow, then we're likely to get rate cuts. The stocks will keep doing their things, but we're still already at all-time highs. So you have to be very careful. Again, just like every other stock, my AVP down here, something I teach my students. If you guys are interested in learning more of these strategies and you want to make the profits like you see on the screen, like students are doing, I would love to help you guys out. You guys can sign up at any time for my Discord. It's in the information box below, the direct link to get started. So the average price really on Palantir is between 105-ish, 100, 105-ish, maybe 110, like right in here. So again, you'll want to sell put options a month out, going down here in the 105 range. If you get assigned, you're down here instead of up here. And if you get assigned, you leave room to stay below 10%. So if the stock comes down here, you can sell more puts down here. And if you get assigned there, well, then your average cost is like around $100. So over time, you have a much better chance of not losing money because you're lowering your costs. So that's what I would do, honestly, if I was looking at getting into Palantir. But again, Palantir looks really strong. All of these stocks look poised to run with strength if data is good tomorrow morning. So use the micro mini S&P 500 to gauge what's likely to happen tomorrow morning. I also want to show you guys something very important here. When you are looking into data on candlesticks, you have to understand that there's data happening inside the candlesticks, which is volume footprint and also order and flow, which hedge funds use. And when you look inside these candles, you can see the volume. And you can see right now there's more buying ever so slightly than selling, except right now. It's not really as strong of buying as there is in selling. So this candle is struggling right now because there's a lot of sell orders happening, which is holding the candle down. This is called volume footprint. There's also order and flow, which mainly hedge funds use to trade. They don't use regular candles just like that. They can, pretty much see inside the candles like this, and even more with order and flow. They do use these candles, they do, but they use order flow and they use volume footprint much more. This is the new beta for Active Trader Pro, and I'm going to show you guys the order books here. Like, for example, if we were to go over and look at Palantir, we would see that there are orders to sell Palantir. 2,600 orders just got filled, and we could see as we go down Palantir on the price, we can see there's not a lot of sandbagging or big orders, 600 shares, 500 shares. There is a lot of buy orders right here. There's 5,500 at 132.88. We can see this updating very quickly. I wish there was a way to slow the updates down. I know that it can be hard to follow, but you can see the order book here. There's a lot of buying, 51,000 shares to buy at 132.80. So the stock is likely to jump up with all that buying, but we have 8,000 shares for sale bouncing around that is potentially getting filled at 132.90. So we have a stalemate right around the price we're at right now. There's a lot of buying and selling, 51,000 shares at 132.80. And then we've got another 3,000 shares jumping around in the 132.90 now. And when you watch this order book, the stock price always gravitates like a magnetic field to the amount of orders. So if you have 8,000 orders at 133 and 50,000 orders at 132, it's always going to be pulled towards where the bigger orders are. And that's what's happening right now with Palantir. There's a lot of orders in the 132.80, 132.85, which is holding it down. There's 51,000 orders or a buy order for 51,000 shares. So just keep that in mind. This is just some of the basics when you're watching real-time history and transactions on a stock to see what's actually happening right now, where the last exchange was, the bid and price, the time. This shows you bullish and bearish sentiment. And when you put that together with the footprint, the volume footprint, and order and flow in the candlesticks, you can see on the 15-minute candle right here what's really happening. We have a little more buying than selling, but it's overall bearish coming down because the stock can't move move. There's just so many sell orders to overcome and at a lower price. You can see overall the delta is at negative 11K right now, which is slightly bearish. So you can see what's happening right now inside the candles. I particularly believe that based on everything I've seen, the data is going to be really good. I think it's going to stay around 2.3 or 2.4, and I would not be surprised if inflation drops a little bit to 2.1 or 2.2, and if it does, the market is going to fly. So be ready tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. to catch data. If data is good, then you should really start looking to sell puts on your favorite stocks. Watch the market and watch the technicals and fundamentals, as it will help you greatly. It's what I teach in Discord. It's why my students are making the profits that you see on the screen. It's why I've made consistently $8,000 to $10,000 a month in my small account. I lead by example. You guys can do the same thing. I love helping people. It drives me every single day. Forget about all the negatives. Focus on the positives. I'm here to help you. It's what drives me every single day. Direct link to the Discord is in the information box below. I would love to help you grow your portfolio. And if you can't do it at this time, then I look forward to seeing you whenever you can. I'll see you on the next YouTube video or on the Discord. Take care of yourselves, fam.